of these say to me that we stopped where we should have stopped, and we're back on track to back up to new highs at least maybe.
I think I texted you this over the weekend. I said, I'm at the point where I think you can buy this market. Um, I'm a little worried about, I'm very worried about private credit, but that's where all my puts are, you know? So, private credit could, has the capacity to bring a big piece of the house down. I'm not saying it will, but it's something to watch. But I'm cautiously bullish.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Markets and Madness. It's been a while, and as we say, this is the place where we discuss the madness that occurs when economics, politics, and personalities all move in different direction. Tim and I back after a month, it seems, right, Tim? How you doing?
Yeah, I've been all over the world since then. Um, Let me just mention that if it turns out that you like this program, make sure you subscribe because if you do, then you'll at least get an alert when we do a new one. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe; you lose nothing. So
Yeah,
click the little.
subscribe, ring the bell, and you'll be notified of any alerts that come up. So it'd be very helpful to help us keep this going. You know, we don't make any money out of this. We just do it for fun, but we like people to give us some feedback. So, having said that, I know whenever you travel, major events in the world happen,
Yeah, that's right.
and certainly we've had a major event this time as well.
Yeah, I got to Thailand and I found out we're at war, and I thought I'd get stuck in Vietnam because I went through Dubai and I hit that airport a few times. Fortunately, I was rerouted to Hong Kong and had to wait about a week to find out that I was rerouted. So, turns out I got through Asia okay, and I try to keep in touch with what's going on. And thoughts are identical. I mean, we've been saying for a year now, buy volatility when it's cheap, and that's sure paid off. I mean, even if you were wrong and you bought puts or calls in the wrong direction, the volatility premiums just exploded on these, and you came out okay.
Yeah, I've always been a big proponent of buying insurance, and I look at options for the most part as insurance. Sometimes you take them as an offensive bet but most of the times they work as a defensive precaution rather than taking your profits. Put a hedge on and put an option hedge on, and it saves you a lot of grief and you can sleep at night.
Yeah. Well, my book is basically a long book, but I got a series of puts in the private equity sector, and that's been working out okay for me. I mean, we've been talking about having a period of tough sledding, and I think we're in it now. But it looks to me like the leverage premiums have been wrung out. Anybody who's been late to the gold party or the stock party and bought on margin, those guys are all wrung out now. They've met their margin calls, and I think these positions are in strong hands. So while you could see us get hit, I think we're back to buying on the dips again. The buy dippers got stung here this past few weeks, but now I think we're okay. And one thing I'm very bullish about is the tax refunds. I've been reading that they're like 10% higher tax refund. That's a lot of money going into this economy, and we're going to start to see some benefits from the big beautiful bill that we was too early to see up to this point. Still early now. It's March. They only showed up in February, late January, February. So I think we're at the point now where we're going to start to see some benefits. And if Trump is playing this right, of course, the war is another variable. That's a wild card, and we don't really know where that goes. But it looks to me like he's made some headway there too. When people start talking about the problems we're faced by taking on Iran, I simply wonder what it would cost if Iran had a nuclear bomb. As it stands now, unless they give away, and here's what I'm worried about, unless they give away the fissionable material that they've refined, they've got the ingredients for a dirty bomb. Maybe not a nuclear bomb, but they're still capable of a dirty bomb. And that would be devastating, certainly for Israel, and depending on what prevailing winds are, other parts of the Mideast. So they're still very dangerous.
What bothers me is, the guy who just resigned, Joe Kent. He was the chief terrorist guy, and he's saying there were no threat. And I go back to the comments. Trump bombed the Iranian capabilities 6 months ago, 9 months ago, and said they can't make any nuclear weapons. We destroyed them. So is he lying to us then, or is he lying to us now?
Well, I mean, that's one way to look at it. I don't agree with that at all, because I think the word eminent is a pretty fuzzy word. You know what? People ask you, where's gold going? And you say, oh, I think it's going up. You don't say, I think it's going to 6,000. You don't pick a number. You pick a direction. And there's no doubt that the Iranians are moving in one direction. And when he took out the stuff he took out back in January with Israel, they started rebuilding. And they told him, no, this is the direction we're going. So to me, that's imminent. That means that on a date certain, they're going to have a nuclear bomb. Maybe that's 2 months from now, maybe it's a year from now, maybe it's 3 weeks from now. I don't know. But every day they were closer to making one.
I mean, I look at the other side of it and say we've been saying that for 40 years now. We've been saying it since they took the hostages in 1979. So, yes, they are closer now, but I don't know.
Well, if you take them at their word, they sat down at the table and said, we got enough for 11 bombs. That sounds pretty imminent to me. Whether or not they're full of shit is another story. I mean, to me, that's too big a risk to run.
Or whether or not we're full of shit, and that's what they said.
Yeah. But meanwhile, they're stockpiling money. They're stockpiling money, and they got proxies all over the world.
Yeah, that I agree with. They definitely are a supporter of terrorism around the world, which is not what we need.
But think about the upside. We're traders. We're looking at we're used to looking at risk and reward. We look at the downside risk and the upside reward. Look at the upside to a world without a viable Iran, or a peaceful Iran, for want of a better word. You've got all the proxies are starved of money for openers. You've got our influence on the global oil supplies now, which is a good thing. And I think we're back to the petrodollar. And nobody's making this point. And to me, it's the biggest point of all. In around 74 or so, Kissinger went to Saudi Arabia and said, price oil in dollars. And don't take anything but dollars for the oil. And that cemented the dollar as a reserve currency. What does that mean? It means that if you're in Uganda and you're going to need oil, whenever you generate foreign exchange, you put it in dollars, and you put those dollars to work in the U.S. markets, either in treasuries or stocks, equities. Now, if the world's in that position, then the U.S. benefits from that. So by BRICS and the effort to undermine the dollar as a reserve currency was gaining traction. And now we control, or at least influence, maybe control is too strong a word, but we influence Venezuelan oil and probably influence Iranian oil after all this is done, and our own oil, which makes us the biggest oil supplier in the world. And all of a sudden now the petrodollar is back big time. So he cemented the dollar as a reserve currency. So there's enormous benefits for this. So the upside was tremendous. And it was a big risk, no doubt. And there's downsides to the risk, no doubt. But I think it was worth the risk. And if it works, you're going to see it's definitely worth the risk. So that's where I am.
I mean, the question is, when will we know if it works or doesn't work? Is it 6 months? Is it 2 weeks? If this goes into September, midterms are going to be in question. I really feel that if we're living with $5, $6 diesel fuels in the U.S.,
Yeah,
we're gonna have a hard time.
there goes the house and there goes the, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The price of gas is critical for the midterm elections. And, you know, the Republicans are losing. They just lost two seats in here in Florida. One of them is Mar-a-Lago.
You were just talking about the petrodollar. I read something this morning, and I don't know how factual, how true it is, but what this piece said was the straits are open. The Straits of Hormuz are open, but they're open to friendly Iranian partners. And what they do is you got to pay a tax, you got to pay a toll to get through. So the captain of that tanker will contact the local Iranian people, person in charge, and say, these are our coordinates, this is our numbers, this is who we are. And all right, well, transfer there's a couple of mil, depending on who they are and how friendly they are. They either have to pay a tax of 1 to 3 million US in yuan or in USDT. And if once that's come through and it's accepted, yeah, you could pass through with no problems. But there are other people who are not open to fly through. Any aggressor nation or any flag with cargo from an aggressor nation is not entitled to it. So the insurance companies are very wary about letting people go through. They're not supporting it. They're not insuring those ships that are from what's considered to Iran an aggressor nation.
This is the window washers union back in the 30s. They'd show up and say, you know, nice windows you got here.
Yeah, that's right.
Uh, right? And this they have to get enough by extorting these vessels to replace their oil revenue.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long they're going to get away with that. Um, you know, we got 5,000 Marines and another 1,000 Delta Force that could probably secure Carg Island. And the thing about Carg Island is there's a valve there, but the oil's coming from internally Iran. So they could shut the oil in Carg, but they can't fill it up. So either way, Iran doesn't get money for that. And the other thing is, I had breakfast with a few guys the other day, and I said, this reminds me of when they used to break the kidney stones. Somebody said, what do you mean? Well, you got a kidney stone, and they would say, all right, we could try to get it to pass it, or we could break it. And if we break it, it's going to break up into 1,000 pieces, and then we got to secure each one of them, you know? So you're not going to pass a big stone, but you're going to pass, 40 smaller ones. Right? Well, that's what we got now. Where we had a centralized government now, I think we have warlords all over Iran. We have warlord mullahs, if you will. And we don't know who we're talking to. And we don't know what each of them are capable of. So this thing is metastasized.
So isn't that what we went through in Afghanistan? Right? It's the
I don't
same
know.
type of thing.
I don't know. It was a different situation. Afghanistan did rely on oil revenue to live.
No, they relied on coca, on poppies.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I'm anti-war at this point for a lot of different reasons, and the fact that he ran on no new wars. So I think he's losing the base for that. So we'll
Well,
see.
you know, maybe right. You know, there's what happens and what the market thinks is going to happen. Sentiment has moved largely against him, and he's going to need some clear successes to turn that around.
Hmm.
To me, a clear success is gas at $2 a gallon, which he had before the war. And if he could get back to that, I think he's got a better shot. I don't know.
Basically coming down 50%,
Yeah.
because we're at like 380 here anyway.
Well, you know, the other way to look at this is he's never really won California. And gas is $1 zillion a gallon in California. And I think I read that 70 cents of it is taxes. More taxes in California are higher than the cost of crude oil that goes into the price at the pump. Yeah. And the other thing is, I lived in California. They had something like 30 different grades that came in uh, that were additives. And that's expensive too. So the EPA's got some control over that. And I guess Lee Zeldin's got something to say about it, but I don't know. Um, but if he loses California, that's okay. The Democrats have had California for a long time.
If he loses Florida,
If he loses Florida, that's a problem.
if he loses Florida and Texas, that's a problem.
Well, we're talking about the Senate and the House here. It's not him that's losing. It's the majorities that you got to worry about. So I don't know. I mean, that's unclear where it goes, and the war's a big piece of that, I think. But I think the big beautiful bill's a piece of that too. You got more money in the hands of people. You got tariff revenue coming in. Uh,
We have tariff revenue coming in
Tariff revenue? Yeah, he does.
with the Supreme Court's last ruling. That
People are still paying it. And he's got other ways to go. And I looked into it yesterday. He's got one big weapon. And the weapon I don't hear people talk about is embargo. We were going through what if death scenarios the other day. And they said, well, what if this, then Trump is going to do this militarily. I said, no, he's not going to do anything militarily. He's done what he can do, and he's shown what he can do militarily. His next step is to embargo. If he says to India, I don't want you going through the Straits, and I don't want you selling to Russia. And if you do, you're not going to sell a toothpick into the United States. I'm going to embargo the following goods. He's got the right to do that. And the Supreme Court just reaffirmed that right. And he can even do a partial embargo, which is another form of a tariff. He could say, I want to embargo, put a 50% embargo on cotton or on your exports in this certain good. And that's a tremendous tool because, imagine you've been to China enough times. What if China gets embargoed? If he says, look, either you give us our access to rare earth or we embargo the following goods.
well, we were talking about this the other day about the garments and manufacturing. Allison was involved in the garment industry for a long time, and there are pieces that are coming out now. I don't know if it's clothes, and we're talking about made in Italy shirts that were $800 a piece. And someone said, no, they're not made in Italy anymore. Their fabric might come from Italy, but they're sent to somewhere else,
Right.
put together, and then sent back to Italy to put the label on it. So you get around the embargo by sending it to a friendly country to put the label on it.
Well, they just took care of that in Vietnam. Vietnam was taking Chinese goods and relabeling, right? And they took care of that. So, yeah, that's a logistical problem, but it's not insurmountable. But it's an issue.
Yeah. Well, just getting back to the markets now. We've had gold, which was above 5,000. What was it, 5,300, 5,400? Now it's down to like 4,600. We've had a big pullback. And looking at it on a technical basis, we've stopped right at the 200-day moving average. We stopped at one of the first retracements. I think it was the 25% retracement. Overall, I think gold is a buy. I don't think anything's really.
I bought a little yesterday. I bought some GLD yesterday, and I feel smart because it's up 4% today.
Yeah. Silver had a much deeper retracement. It went down to the 200-day moving average again. It went down to the two-thirds retracement of that April move to the highs above 100. So it's come a long way. That's another one, I think. If if you think you missed the boat, this is the time to get back in. The SPY, I ran a chart of the SPY, and we were well below the 200-day moving average when Trump made the announcement about the war. And now we've reversed, and it looks like this morning we're back up above it. So we've been to the retracement, the first retracement. All of these say to me that we stopped where we should have stopped, and we're back on track to back up to to new highs at least, maybe.
I think I texted you this over the weekend. I said, I'm at the point where I think you can buy this market. Um, I'm a little worried about, I'm very worried about private credit,
Yeah,
but that's where all my puts are,
yeah,
you know? So, private credit has the capacity to bring a big piece of the house down. I'm not saying it will, but it's something to watch. But I'm cautiously bullish now.
and it's going to feed on itself. You know, Blue Owl was the first leg to drop, and if the market does come off, you know, we were just talking about these are great opportunities to buy, but if the market does come off and some of these larger investors have to look and retrace and come up with some margin money again, they're going to go to their private credit and that fund manager is going to say, oh no, that's locked up for 3 more years. You
At
can't
the
touch
gates,
it.
yeah. Well, I think anybody who came late to the gold party or even the equity party um, was leveraged. And I think what we've seen, this move down, has wrung a lot of the leverage out of the market. If that's true, and we got no way of knowing if it's true, but if it's true, then the positions are in strong hands again. And they can withstand a pop down. The leverage market can't.
Hmm.
So the question on the table is, has the leverage, the excess leverage, been wrung out of this market? Because that's the stuff you're going to need if you go to private equity funds and you're trying to pull money out and you run into gates and you can only get 5% out or this. So I think, I think positions are in stronger hands now. Whether or not they're strong enough to withstand another 10% drop down, who can say? But I feel a little better about this market, and I'm inclined to buy it on dips now where I wasn't before.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that chart of the SPY, we made a real rounded top up near 700, 697, I think was the high, and we came off back below 640. So we had like what,
Well,
8%?
let me make one more point. Spring is here, and we got 6 months to the fall and 6 months to elections. Trump is going to do everything in his power to keep this market goosed. Now, the Fed will, I don't know, but I think the Fed is more or less academic now at this point. I think it's fiscal policy that's driving everything. And he's laid the groundwork for really strong fiscal policy. He's encouraged foreign investment in a big way with tax policy, with tariff policy, which he's amending according to the Supreme Court. And he's still got the embargo tool to waive. So I think he's going to do everything he can to goose this market before the election. I think we're in the home stretch here.
Yeah,
So
it's a tough guy to bet against. It's like Elon. It's a tough guy to bet against.
you lose money fading them. You really do. Okay.
I think it was a good summation of the last month and a preview of where we go next. So
Yeah. All right. We'll talk to you guys soon.
yeah, have a great afternoon.